Three-word game with chilling rain decks, baby. Let's go.
Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX.
Welder still exists. I literally see no reason to play this card, right? Especially in the pre-rotation meta. I think there's just so many other decks that do what this does infinitely better. You know, Welder, I think Welder Box is by far a better deck. You have to discard 2 energy every time to do 240. Just play something else. I'm not going to talk for this one long.
Eternatus VMAX.
Loses biggest weakness. Now, Eternatus was always a deck that struggled with energy denial, right? And we saw towards the tail end of this format, Hammer started to really creep back into favor, right? Everyone knew if you want to have a better Eternatus, just hammer off their energy because they're stuck attaching 1 energy per turn. But now that Galarian Moltres V exists, being able to attach 1 dart from the discard pile to itself and then being able to energy switch them off lets you get a Dread End going out of nowhere in 1 turn potentially, and shoring up that weakness. So Eternatus is poised, I reckon, to have a real good format for sure. Whilst gaining Shadow Rider as a good matchup as well, being weak to Dark, that should be a fairly good matchup for you. Even if they play Zapdos, I still think you can navigate that matchup really well and get some easy dubs.
Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX.
Changes play styles. Now, honestly, I think Urshifu VMAX, Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, in combination with Persimmon and Longview Scope, Telescopic Sight I should say, sorry, has the potential and the power to change how the game is played. Honestly, being able to just, you know, rapid flow with a Persimmon and a Telescopic Sight and just KO bench sitters without any other mods just seems insane to me. And it's going to really punish the Dene and Prey and Crobat and Prey, being able to just pick them off really easily, especially with, you know, bosses always going to take 4 prior turns at a whim. Just seems super scary. And you know what? I can honestly see Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX changing the way the game is played for sure.
Shadow Rider VMAX with Path to the P.
This won Worlds. Now, honestly, I'm not trying to be coy with it or anything, but Zoroark Garb won Worlds. And this is, while it's not the exact same deck, you know, Underworld Door not being as good as Trade, there are a lot of similarities, you know, being able to see extra cards to make sure you can get your lock established, and then establish a lock only when you are set up. You know, then being able to just, you know, get rid of the lock whenever you like, start attacking again, do some more damage, put the lock back on. The game is really in your hands with this deck, and it's actually a list and the deck that an archetype that I haven't really seen talked about too much, and it's poised to really be good. We've already seen this style of deck win Worlds, and there's no reason why this can't really take some lunch money as well.
Tornadus VMAX.
Stage 2s. I don't even need a third word for this one. Stage 2. You won't catch me playing Stage 2 for anything other than like a little fun deck. Like, yeah, will it be fun? Yes. Is it like an Urshifu VMAX in the sense where you can take 1-shots with powerful energy as well as single strike energy? Yes. Do you have to discard all those energies to take your 1-shots? No. Do you have to play a Stage 2 instead of multiple Stage 1s to get that? Most likely, yes. So, I'm not a fan of Tornadus VMAX. Looks cool, but not very good.
Lucmetalization.
Stuck on Path. Now, Lucmetalization is a deck that's so inherently strong. You know, any deck that uses Zation is going to be good in combination with that, you know, Full Metal Wall GX, but Intrepid Sword is so integral to that deck because you don't play that many draw supporters, and you don't play any ways to draw cards like a Dedenne or Crobat, for example. You are really reliant on Intrepid Sword in the mid to late game. Also, not to mention, you are really reliant on Zamazenta V as well to wall some VMAXs, and Path to the Peak sort of stops both of them. Like, stopping Intrepid Sword for this deck in the early turns and the mid turns screams scary. Like, it would really shake my boots if I was a Lucmetal player looking at Path to the Peak. Now, granted, they can play, you know, Guz Hala, Chaotic Swell and stuff like this, but I don't know, anytime you're having to like discard cards out your hand to, you know, try and set back up, your opponent can just play another Path to the Peak, you're in trouble. So I would be scared if I was a Lucmetal player now. I probably would be looking at playing something else. Stuck on Peak.
Sandaconda VMAX.
Wins games fast. Let me tell you, that's Sandaconda VMAX for 1 energy, 6 is to the active, which is really relevant, by the way. And then 20 to all your opponent's bench Pokemon. In combination with the Telescopic Sight, you're now doing 50 to the bench. And that gets pretty crazy. I've actually got some gameplay that I'm trying to get on the channel, just needs editing. And let me tell you, that Sandaconda is nothing to be messed with. Now, granted, Mew is probably going to be played in a whole lot of fashion because, you know, Rapid Strike just gets insane. You probably get caught in that crossfire, but equally, you are a boss away from carrying that in the same way Rapid Strike would look to do. And then all of a sudden, those Denes and Crobats are looking awfully sus. But now, like I said about Rapid Strike Urshifu, we could see the game sort of shift away from just multiple Denes, Crobats, and Eldegrosses being down. In which case, Sandaconda might be a bit worse, but it's got a decent enough attack with 3 for 180, move the energies away. Good combination with Cheryl, could actually be fairly good. Sandaconda VMAX wins games fast.
Green's Trevnoir.
Practice coin flips. Honestly, I don't see how this deck has gotten so much, you know, traction on social media. Granted, being able to get that Night Watch turn 2 all the time in combination with Cresselia is really cool. And, you know, Marnie plus that helmet card that removes energy when your opponent attacks into it is all really good. Don't get me wrong. Marnie, Night Watch, Trevnar, Enginar is a really, really strong combo. I adore a bit of Trevnar. Don't get it twisted. I love a Night Watch. Sending people to Top Deck City. But equally, if your opponent makes you go first, you're in trouble. I genuinely don't see a win at that point, apart from, you know, relying on hammerheads, which I guess some decks do now, but I don't know. You won't catch me playing. You might get me playing it for like a cheeky league challenge or a deck profile, but is it super? Will you see it win the Sunday Open or chill? Probably not.
Victini VMAX.
Cheeky geezer lives. Now, the inherent deck strategy of Victini, especially in the pre-rotation format, you know, using Lieberhorn to bring HP down to 100 and then Victini to come through with that Yopper afterwards, that doesn't change, in all honesty. You could argue, you know, potentially finding a Welder with Path to the Peak being in format. It's quite scary, but you could just, you know, sort of take away the Dedenne route and go for more of a Jirachi engine, maybe even a baby Inteleon engine. Yeah, being able to attack for 2 is really cool. I don't see that deck strategy changing at all, and like I said, being able to rely on Jirachis and all that good stuff seems rather good to me. Anytime you're a 2 energy attacker, you always get some positive thumbs up in my book. Cheeky geezer lives.
Inteleon VMAX.
Favorite water VMAX. I actually really love Inteleon VMAX. Always have, always will. And the combination now of the Melanie supporter, meaning you don't have to play a ton of energies and Frostmark, could actually put this deck back on the map, freeing up those deck spaces for stuff like Longview Scope, for stuff like that helmet card and the hammers, really turning Inteleon into a sort of control deck in the aspect where you're removing energies really fast off the opponent's board and then building towards that max bullet. There's 160 to the active, which after some Hydro Snipes can start taking KOs, plus 90 bench snipe. Just seems rather crazy to me. This could be a sleeper pick for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if Inteleon VMAX starts sliding up tier list rankings and stuff like this. Really cool. Favorite water VMAX.
Shadow Rider Mewtwo.
Perfection gets perfect. Now, I don't see a lot of people talking about this. My good friend Demetrius Eaton doesn't think it's going to be that good, but if you just take the sort of Galaxy Mewtwo Jitsu, whatever you call it, package and sling in like a 3/3 Shadow Rider, right? Being able to just accelerate energies into play really fast, maybe even a few Auroras so you can get, you know, some different attackers going like a Galarian Zapdos. That seems pretty crazy to me. Opening up the potential of stuff like Venom Shot again, maybe, you know what I mean? Get a little snipe KO. This could be really good on paper. We all know Mewtwo has been an absolutely incredible attacker, right? We're playing so many different archetypes. Now being able to just fling Psychic Energies really fast into play seems pretty good to me. It's a deck that I'll be trying out really soon for sure. Perfection gets perfect.
Blaziken VMAX Zoroark.
Insane on paper. Now, this is actually a deck I've played against a lot. In our sort of tabletop testing here on the channel with my good friend Demetrius Eaton, he loved the sort of decks that have a really high ceiling that rely on special energy, a bit like Plasma, right? So I've played against this deck quite a lot, and let me tell you, I've never actually lost to it. I think the problem with this deck is Blaziken VMAX really doesn't do a great deal. If that 2 for 130 needs to be a little bit higher, if it's not pressuring anything, it never is. It doesn't even 2-shot VMAXs, right? And then the Zayora comes in, and granted, the Zayora's bench snipe is absolutely incredible. 160 to the bench is insane, you know. Dedennes and Crobats are just gone. But because the Blaziken is not doing a lot, you can end up just sort of essentially slowing down your board state, not relying on Dedennes and Crobats, building up an active and just saying, right, deal with this. they end up having to like three-shot it sometimes, which is just silly. And that, you know what I mean? And between the Zoroark, which isn't really tanky, between the Blaziken VMAX, which again isn't really very tanky, I don't feel as if this deck pressures the active enough. Now, I could be wrong. They can play stuff like a scapegoat, right? Sort of push that away to the bench, you're active, and then sling it with a Zoroark, but it just feels like you're doing an awful lot to like, it feels like you're having to do an awful lot to do an awful lot more to close games, if you know what I mean. Games don't ever seem terribly simple with that deck. And you know what? I like some games where you just sit down and the power level of the cards are so insane, you just win straight away. And I feel as if that's going to be a deck where you never get any easy wins for sure.
Gardevoir.
Stop it. Stop it.
Pikachu.
Stamp, hammer, paralysis. No matter where the format goes, I promise you this now, Pikachu will not fully die. Now, granted, with stuff like Galarian Moltres in format, you know, stuff like Melanie potentially in format as well, right? You could argue that hammers become less effective, and you could also argue that hammers are integral to Pikachu's success now, right? Which is all fair comments, but equally, there are enough tools in format now to where you can either go two ways with this. You can either really double down on the engine arm, right? Play stuff like that helmet card that removes energy, you know, maybe you can play some yell horns and stuff like this, right? Or you could take those 4 hammers out, which I don't think was even needed anyway, and bang in some more tempo cards. I'm not sure what those cards are. Maybe stuff like Energy Switch. You can maybe try and go for like a turn 1 full blitz more often, or stuff like this. And sort of, if you're saying, right, if Energy now isn't good enough anymore, let's flip it over somewhere else. And we know that the sort of lightning core is good enough to where you can do that. You can go from control-esque to aggro and come back and forth. You know what I mean? That can happen. So, stamp, hammer, paralysis. Pikachu's going nowhere, people. Don't get it twisted.
Rapid Strike Malamar.
Could actually work. Now, I've seen a lot of stage 1s that attack for 1 attachment that normally hit for good weakness, be rather good in my time. Stuff like Domfram, hit and run from back in the day. And this reminds me similar of that vibes. 43 Rapid Strike Pokemon that you sort of reveal from behind and shuffle back in could actually be pretty good. There's a whole host of Rapid Strike Pokemon you can play to easily sort of fulfill this. Octillery sort of keeps you going as well. And I actually think this actually could be pretty decent. It could be a fun little rogue, little budget deck for sure.
Welder.
Best sleeper pick. Now, honestly, when it comes to new set inclusions, right, and stuff like this, and like rotations, all that good stuff, people always forget about the tried and tested new decks. No. People always forget about the tried and tested old decks. I feel as if Welderbox can be one of those decks. Everyone's gonna like try and play all these new fancy cards, and Welderbox is gonna be the Welderbox players are just gonna be sitting there like, hello, yeah, I'm still going to be taking top 8s, top 4s and winning these events easily. The deck is so strong, doesn't gain much, doesn't lose anything. Going to be good. Now, you could argue maybe that, you know, Path to the Peak might hurt it, but they already play a Jirachi in January, so I'm sure they can, you know, get away with it. They play, what, 4 Jirachis and they play, like, loads of stages, so I'm sure they'll be fine.
Seviper.
Could actually be the best single strike deck. You know what I mean? 180 for free on a 1 prize is extremely good. Being able to sometimes, you know, trade Dedenades with a great catcher in 1 attack from a 1 prize is pretty gnarly. The single strike engine is pretty consistent as well. But just what scares me is that you have to get multiple stage 1s, and you don't really want to be playing too many 2 prizes of your own for prize trade reasons. Yeah, I think it could be the best budget deck by far, in my opinion, and being able to hit loads of different types for weakness could actually be pretty cool as well. So keep your eye on Survivor, it definitely could be a heavy hitter.
Mewtwo.
Now I'm cheating a little bit with this one, but hear me out. Tropical Hour, let's put it together. Tropical Hour is nutty. I've actually been super impressed by Rillaboom Mewtwo go through this past meta. Been getting some really good results. Again, I don't really see it gaining a lot. I don't see it losing a lot outside of, you know, potential Path to the Peak spoiling the fun. But again, they play tag calls, they play Chaotic Swirl, they can sort of get around that potentially. So, and I think moving forward, Tropical Hour actually gets stronger, in my opinion, be able to like shuffle away a ton of energy, because there's a difference between discarding and shuffling away. You could argue that discarding would be better against stuff like Shadow Rider Calyrex, so they can't reattach them and draw into them. But against stuff like a turn that is shuffling away is better, so they can't just mold trace it. So, you know, ebbs and flows. But either way, a well-timed Tropical Hour will win you games, and this deck isn't going anywhere.
ADPD.
I'll save the best till last. Still the diff. ADP is not going anywhere. It's really not. ADP Peony could prove interesting as well. Whether or not I think that makes the list, I'm not sure. Gives it a new avenue, and I still think no matter what goes on, all these evolving VMAXs, there's gonna be points in the game where they give up 3 prizes before they evolve, and we all know what ADP loves to do. The old boss. See you later. Now you could argue, in all fairness, that Path to the Peak might, a lot of decks might be moving away from like a Dedenne Crobat engine. And that could hurt ADP. But like I said, equally, all these VMAX in decks, they're going to have one turn where they don't evolve up. And if they don't, you can boss them for 3 prizes. And also, equally, if there's going to be stuff like Inteleons knocking about as well, you can ultimate raid them, set up your Zacians, all that good stuff. And then at that point, we have to do is just carry 1 VMAX/tag team to win the game. And that seems pretty gnarly. Let me know what you think about this kind of video. I actually quite enjoy it, don't get me. I got the idea from Colin Cowherd, really cool sports analyst, sort of talk show geezer over there in America on FS1. Make sure you go check that out if you like sort of American football, basketball, all that good stuff. But thank you for watching. If you made it this far, leave a like, come on, all that good stuff. Hit the subscribe button as well. Plenty of Chilling Reign content coming out soon for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.